Ci diceva che il potere assoluto non nasce con un'imposizione dall'alto, ma dalla scelta di individui che si sentono più protetti rinunciando e concedendo la propria libertà ad un terzo. In virtù di questo, voi proseguite anestetizzando le menti a base di mass media comprati, banchina e PNL, con parole come regime, consentire e permettere, fino al punto di permettervi proprio di normare anche i nostri legami e i sentimenti e certificare i nostri affetti. Abbiamo capito che non si muore di certo per il solo virus, ed allora si potrà soffrire e morire grazie a voi a norma di legge per la miseria e la povertà. E come nei migliori regimi, la colpa sarà scaricata solo e unicamente su noi cittadini. Ci togliete la libertà e dite che ce la siamo cercata, al grido del primitivo.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Dissolving the Divide. We're very excited to have an international guest here, a global perspective that we're bringing to our show here. And I'm going to let Derek introduce our guest.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah,
Derek,
'cause,
over there in
I'm the
France.
Americano Italiano living in France. What the hell, man? Where did I go wrong? No, just kidding. But yeah, Leslie, we got another one of your colleagues from the One Great Work Network here with us, Francesco Sani. It's so great to speak with you finally. I wanted to come out and reach out to you live and direct and pay you some personal respect in Italy and Firenze. And maybe watch a match with Fiorentina. Who knows? But that's another time. But
A reference I didn't get.
about getting down to brass tacks with natural law and how that scene's going down over there. You've been in some recent conferences, which is great. And yeah, we're just really happy to have you on, and really curious and interested to hear, what your observations are and your activities going on with the state of your country and all that good stuff, man. And the bad, whatever.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of bad stuff, as you may imagine. But anyway, yeah, I want to thank you very much, both of you, for having me on. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a great pleasure to be able to speak with you for the first time. So
Yes,
that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. What's the state of freedom like now in Italy?
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. I mean, we were really the first country that was that got all the shockwave from the COVID tyranny, the recent COVID tyranny, which is not really over. So in the Western Hemisphere, it's kind of the first country that was caught with they utilized us basically for the first testing ground of that medical tyranny and everything. And because I think the kind of the ground was sadly the ground was kind of fertile for that experiment. I don't think it's a case that they chose Italy to start that whole operation. Now they're doing kind of the same thing with the digital identity. It's going to be harder and harder to do stuff, even if you want to be able to travel outside of the European Union. It's going to be harder not to do it with having some sort of digital ID, and that's gonna in their plans is gonna get even more and more invasive. So
what's happening now already?
Now but it's in Europe in general. Now there's all this talk of being prepared for war, and that we're not going to have peace anymore in Europe. We had it for too long. Now it's sort of these politicians in Brussels and even here are starting to say that we're gonna be in a war situation soon, and we have to accept even even more war economy like we didn't have already. So there's a lot of war talk for the whole Ukraine situation and the Red Sea situation, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because my girlfriend over here in France, she told me that recently, they're trying to pass, tax laws to take from normal people a lot more because they got to do the rearmament of the military and all this stuff and prepare for what exactly? I'm just like,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not following the
basically, yeah,
news all that much, but yeah, not to
yeah,
sound
basically it's
ignorant.
the rearmament of Europe. They've been talking about it for quite some time, especially Germany. Germany,
Mm,
as you may know, had some limitations on their, officially had some limitations on their military capabilities after the whole, the World War II and everything. And now they're saying that, those times are over and it's time to, get back to become the first military power in Europe. So they even talk about Germany being fortress Europe, and somebody else used that term in the 30s and 40s. So
Huh.
that's kind of disquieting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so generally that's what they're talking about. And I'm thinking, rearmament is really for, for what, external enemy, or possibly, internal oppressed, uh, seeing how the economic situation is going. So
yeah, because as far as I'm concerned, real quick, I've noticed in France and Italy could possibly be parallel to this, but like it's a pretty safe country. People are pretty civilized. They're rather domesticated, if you will. Like, and we're civilians are unarmed. We don't, like the gun laws are really strict. If you want to go hunting,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can apply and yada yada, like a lot of places. But yeah, man, it's just
yeah,
why
that
all
is,
the guns that the military needs for, like,
yeah,
but then,
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's another
It's a
another
big
big
topic.
difference from the from, for example, the United States, which is pretty unique in the world, as far as at least their right to be able to defend themselves, even possibly from the government itself. And here, that this is something that it's not really understood. It's not really well comprehended. People, yeah, some people might advocate for, having less strict, less stricter laws, less strict laws for, owning guns and everything. But there's not there's a basic difference in the mindset uh, regarding this topic. Here, people, it's kind of unthinkable to be able to own guns without registration, and not saying anything to any, official institution, and not having permits, and especially not use, if you talk about using them against the government, that's kind of seen as subversive, and criminal, outright criminal. So yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a different mindset regarding that. Um,
What
and
are
that,
the gun
and
laws
that's a
now?
huge issue. I want to say that's a huge issue, a huge negative issue among the others, because that they were, in the States, they were unable to do all the things that they did here. For example, with the COVID agenda, here they just, I mean, at least in Italy, was very easy. They rolled it out, like, it was really easy for them to do so. Because I want to remind you that we still have mask mandates in place for hospitals, and care homes, and like, healthcare facilities in general. So
Yeah. What are the current gun control laws there?
well, I mean, there are limitations on what you can and can't buy. Limitations on the number of ammos, and not the number of guns, depending on what kind of permit you have.
Mhm.
And yeah, so then there's registration, for guns, for ammunition, and sometimes even for magazines.
Mhm.
Um, you basically uh, it's there is a self-defense permit that you can request, but it's usually for, security guards. It's very difficult to obtain it for regular people. You need you need a motivation that it's not generally it's not accepted, and so and anyway it's gonna be a hassle anyway, because there are many, it's generally an anti-self-defense country as far as the laws are applied by judges. If you, for example, you find yourself in a self-defense situation, and God forbid you have to take somebody out, you're basically, more likely than not, you're gonna have to do some time in
Wow.
jail.
Yeah.
So.
And you mentioned that the consciousness of the people generally agrees or is complicit with that.
Oh yes, people might complain and protest, but if you start talking about that type of rebellion, being able to at least have a somewhat of a leveled playing field, even if theoretically it's not really so, because obviously now the military has, it can have pretty much everything as far as hardware. So, but anyway, even the fact that people are scared by this kind of prospect, being able to own and carry firearms to protect first of all your rights and freedoms. So
Yeah. And as far as like the level of police, and have you noticed, has it been kind of more obvious as to the level or state of the police state in Italy since the dawning of the Rona? And also, have you noticed even before then that they've been a little bit more militarized, kind of like I've noticed here in France with the gendarmerie, if you will? And also, what's the common person's perspective and like opinion about the police in general?
well, starting from what you asked me first, yes, I do have noticed the increase on the the police overreach and presence, and yeah, obviously it's with the COVID operation that sort of ramped up the whole the whole thing, and then and the police got literally drunk with the with the power they had, and so they could basically violate their own laws and the constitution, and there has been absolutely no repercussion, for them and for politicians. So mm, and now they have, they have that power, and are basically, they're gonna utilize it, for even for future occasions. And I have to tell you that, unlike the states, where I say that they have to use, they have, there are rights, people have more rights regarding their interactions with police compared to over here. Like, for example, if they say that they're gonna search for example, if they stop you, you must stop, and you must give them ID. That's mandatory. That's you can't escape it. And they want to search your car, they want to search your purse, personal searches like frisking and stuff. It's kind of another, it's a different thing, a bit of a different thing. But for the rest, they can tell you to empty your pockets and your backpack and whatever, and you have to, and you must do it. However, yeah, in the states they use more direct intimidation, because they want to intimidate people into renouncing the rights that they theoretically have. So over here they don't really need to do it, because those rights, we have less rights in that regards compared to the states. So
perception, the people have accepted a status, right, that where they've given up their own natural rights to accept the state's limited definition of their rights.
yeah.
And how do you see that as something that is like the product of like centuries of war, or how do you think people got to this state of allowing the
Yes,
police
here
to
it's interesting, because we are talking about continental Europe in general, we had a history of absolutism. So this was the absolute rule of either the king or the church. The empire and the Holy Roman Empire, Holy Roman Empire, etc., and the various monarchs and the papacy. So they had what they said was law basically. And so I mean, obviously today people think are free because we have this democracy and possibly even social democracy, as some people like to to think about it. So which I guess makes them more happy. But anyway, we are not I think centuries and centuries of absolute power, they leave a mark definitely on the mindset of the people. Though some things are just more readily accepted than, let's say, for example, the common law countries like Britain and other places that I'm not saying are doing are doing better than than the rest of the world, but at least in a small portion of the population, you have more a sense of individual rights and what the government can or cannot do, and when it's overstepping. And here a consciousness like that was more absent in general. Now, at least now with after COVID, there was some more libertarian oriented type of thought that at least got into the into the vast ocean of the public consciousness. So,
Yeah. And I remember, I forget this woman's name, but it was an Italian diplomat. I don't know if she was speaking in either the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum, or just in the Italian Parliament. But she went off, like bam, 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 and like calling out people like Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and folks like that. Does that ring a bell of this woman?
yeah, I remember her. Yeah, she was a member of parliament. I think she's out of parliament now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But
Yeah, she also got persecuted by the police. They sequestered her computers and
geez,
stuff like
really?
that. So
And
that was
because at that time I was kind of skeptical, because you would see certain things and like there's a lot of psyops, right? When we're looking into alternative media and all this stuff, and there's even like deep fakes and all this stuff, or like people mistranslating foreign languages into English, whatever. So I was just curious as to if you saw any errors to that specific video and her speech about that, and if what she was saying was actually like kind of on point as far as calling out the BS on some of that.
Yeah, I mean, her obviously from a statist perspective,
Right, yeah, and that,
she was calling, she was
good framework,
saying
yeah.
those things about Bill Gates, and she was booed and by the parliament, and
Damn.
so definitely, I was kind of surprised to see it, because in parliament everybody was on board really with this stuff, and they had to. After a few years, they had to they had to give the people like a false fake opposition with the party that's currently in power, which are the the hair, which is the hair basically of the fascist party. So
Yeah,
it's
it
kind
was,
of a cleaned up fascist party of old,
Right.
but they used to be against the sanctions to Russia, against the European Union, and now all of that is like forgotten. Once they got to power, it's it's all good with the EU. Putin is bad and Russia is bad, etc. So
Change their mind quickly.
oh yeah, very quickly.
So what
Yeah,
is
not
this?
that I had any doubt with it, but there was also some other things you wanted to say, Derek, about the police here. What was
it was more just like,
the
because in
militarization, I
America
guess?
there can be a lot of differing opinions, and there can be some really strong opinions, and obviously hip hop music goes deep into like F the police, that kind of history behind all that. But in Italy it's not the same history as far as the whole post slave era, and who the police in America kind of derived from, as far as like sheriffs being kind of bounty hunters to catch runaway slaves and that kind of stuff. I got a train coming. But yeah, as far as like, are there Italians out there saying like, fuck the police? And especially since the dawning of the Rona, have they been
Yes.
a little bit more on edge or more defensive or kind of untrusting?
I know people that would have criticized you for speaking out, pointing out the dangers of having this police, this police force and a standing military. People would fiercely criticize you before, and maybe now some of them have changed their mind. But generally, Italy, if they've been pretty obedient, especially when they see uniforms. So
Yeah.
And the police, the sort of the police hatred, they're kind of creating a dialectic even with that, because now they're saying that there are all these anarchists that are threatening public order, and they want to attack police. And so now after the Rona, as you said, now I see that they're trying to gain sympathy again for the police, and they're keeping us safe, and there are these anarchists, these black blocs, and that they're attacking them, and they want to create chaos because they're anarchists. So the whole objective is to set cities on fire and and destroy things. So, and the police are there to protect us, so we have to be grateful, and because they saw that many people, or at least many more people, I should say, not many people, but were starting to become critical of the police for what they were seeing during the coronavirus medical tyranny. Policemen were filmed or were seen kicking old ladies out of buses because they didn't have the green pass, and I mean and the military, because we had in Italy it's kind of common to have the military in the streets. I did that myself when I was in the army. I went to, they sent me to Rome for some months, and I was doing the public safety. I was basically a public safety officer, and I was in the subway stations and some other places, like so it's it's easier for them to roll out the military also to assist the cops for territorial control or people control, or however.
Yeah. You're broaching the subject I wanted to ask about next, which was the media and the propaganda, and the amount of censorship. So you shared right there a bit about how the media is now developing an active, like, police sympathy kind of message. What else? What other things do you notice about the media, the propaganda, censorship, those kinds of topics?
Oh yeah, the media is terrible. That's really kind of like what you have over there in the States. They'll create, and especially for creating false dichotomies, and they have the obviously now since there is the right wing in power, now they are trying to, first of all, they're trying to make people forget everything about what happened in these past few years. Whether it's the anarchist threat, or the Houthi. There's a lot of hooting about the Houthis in Yemen, and or Putin. It's everything. Everything is, or the environment obviously is a huge one. This fake environmentalism and green agenda, and so they're trying to do everything they can to keep people bickering about these things and politics, and to forget what they did in these past few years, because they know that that then they're trying to basically keep the state the state machine going strong. And so if they say something about the coronavirus charade. It's to blame the other party, the party that was in power back then, which was the left. So they say, oh well, it was their fault because they didn't lock down the place earlier. that
They weren't
that's
tyrannical quickly enough.
they weren't tyrannical quickly enough. Yes. So, yeah, that's why people died.
Huh. Is it the same? Like you said, the left, is that the same as like the left in respects to America, like the Democratic side, or is it the inverse?
It's called the main party is called the Democratic Party. Obviously, we don't have the two-party system. We have multiple parties, so it's another type of distraction. So you have all these parties to choose from, right? That's the beauty of democracy.
Yeah.
So
the flavor of choice. Yeah, we got eight every election over here in France, but they're not any of them are much of a good flavor as far as freedom is concerned.
People want to flee. Yeah, that's freedom.
yeah, exactly. And that's that brings the point about the other dialectic that we were mentioning before going live, which is the globalism versus the nationalism. And in this case, it's especially the alternative media, but you can hear it sometimes even in the mainstream. Some of it. So you have basically these two camps, and the nation. Basically, the argument of the nationalists is that we have to get back our sovereignty, so to speak. But obviously, they're talking about national sovereignty, and which is not really sovereignty for the individual. And again, they're very authoritarian in what they say that they want to do and want to accomplish. So I don't see why people would think that they would bring any amount of freedom. Obviously, the globalists. I mean, we all know what they are about. So it's, we all know what the deal with that is. However, the problem is that now, since people have a very unidimensional or bidimensional type of thinking, they say, well, okay, those are bad. The others must be the good guys, right? The Holy Crusaders for giving us our sovereignty back, and nothing could be further from the truth. And even all these alternative media, all people that are speaking and are the most followed probably in the alternative media, and are again, they are proponents of the so-called ethical state, the sort of the Hegelian state, something like that. And then and their main argument is that the state now is, states now are they don't really exist anymore as far as being a public institution. They are privatized and corporativized, and their solution is, well, we need to make the state public again, and working for the people, giving them free services, and especially healthcare and this stuff, and having a sovereign economy, etc. And but they're kind of really fallacious in their in their thinking, because it's an authoritarian. It's still an authoritarian type of thinking that you're not gonna have freedom. You're not gonna accomplish freedom that way. Absolutely, it's not possible. And again, there's this whole thing about getting back national sovereignty, which, first of all, I mean, the way that these governments are going about their business now is, it's all going towards this global dictatorship, whether you have the right wing or the left wing, or or alternative parties. It's really all going towards this closed down society and hyper surveilled and really tightly controlled by the state, because they say that corporations are in control, but people don't believe in the corporations. People believe in the state. corporations and these big private companies, they don't have, they miss one crucial element, which is having the force of law and the authority. And that's the state that's giving them this. So it's these people that are actually asking for more state in order to be free are delusional.
Yeah. And it brings them closer to globalism. And really, is that what you were saying? More close to globalism than really in
It's more
sovereignty?
it's still a slavery paradigm. It's a paradigm based on slavery, because that there's what they're proposing is just about somebody has been in control, and maybe he's stealing more resources to give, even if they want to give free stuff to the people. It's still based in coercion, and it's not really, and by the way, it's not really gonna happen anyway. And especially with some of the alliances that they would like to see, for example, with Russia, or with the BRICS and everything. This isn't don't talk to me about about that, because we are definitely not on the same page. I mean, these people might hate the American, the Anglo-American system, but the alternative is definitely not better, as as people who have two brain cells can obviously see.
How is your work received over there? Do you have to be careful?
In what sense, careful?
Well, in terms of like freedom of speech and is there any threat to you for speaking out against?
I don't think for the moment in particular. However, you have to be, depending on what you talk about, you have to be careful about what you say, especially if you talk really bad about some institutions and some institutional figures, characters like the president of the republic, because there's we still have the crime of offending the president, and then offending the institutions, and even the police and the armed forces. So theoretically,
what a bunch of divas, man. No, just kidding.
So theoretically, it's still it can be a crime, depending on what you say, and
to hurt their feelings, basically.
Yes, yeah, basically yes. It's very rarely applied, but it's not. But it hasn't been scrapped off the law books.
Right.
Actually, I have interviewed a guy that had to go to trial for offending the institutions.
Interesting. Where does the power of the Catholic Church stand in modern times, and the Pope?
Well, obviously, it's strong as ever. Most people are Catholic. This is a Catholic country. The papacy has always been here, and I've talked about Italian history the other day, actually, with Sean McCann. So that's supposed to come out
cool
next week, and we were talking about the unification of Italy and some of the facts. And obviously, I was saying that the papacy might have lost its territorial power, because it used to be a state, that was dividing Italy into two. So in the center there was the state of the church. Obviously, with the unification of Italy, it was confined to the Vatican. However, that doesn't mean that that its power was lost. If anything, it was augmented. It was it became more powerful, going from more overt and being an overt territorial entity with a state of its own, to now being more covertly still in possession of the minds of most people. And these ideas about these pacifist ideas, and this and just being passive and not resisting, Catholicism has a huge part in it. Catholicism from one side, and I guess New Ageism on the other side. But Catholicism has I mean, this attitude towards self-defense, as we were discussing, stems, I think, mostly over here from the Catholic religion. Whether people think they are devout Catholics, or even people who don't believe in, who say they are not religious, but still they have grown up in this mindset that it's kind of inescapable if you're born here. Like,
Yeah, the
this
influence
is
all
the
around.
Vatican. That is the Vatican country, basically. So
Yeah.
There's a lot
Very
of
proud of
people
that
who-
too.
and
what's
now with
good
them
about
being
that
completely on board with the with all the global tyranny, now it's even they are even doing basically they are closing the circle there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just real quick, stemming off the whole religious thing, because yeah, like how many centuries has that been around for? So centennial, generational conditioning,
Yeah,
tradition, trauma,
millennial condition.
and all these things, like embedded in a lot of people's subconscious that they don't fully understand, because their great 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 grandfather spent more than half their life building a cathedral that they would never see the end result of, because these things would take centuries or hundreds of years to make sometimes. Some of these
Yeah, and the mind control that and all the mind control that goes with it. That, as I said, even people who say they're not religious by any stretch, they still have the they still have they still got that influence. They still got that influencing them in their thought. That's why you have why you have this mentality of just like sort of waiting and seeing how things are going, and things will solve themselves somehow magically. uh, that's kind of better than doing anything. you know
Yeah.
so
Is the family unit still very centrally valued? The loyalty to family and multi-generational family connection.
well, maybe that over here, especially in the south, it's there's more of that going. They obviously are trying to undermine it, like they're doing everywhere.
Mhm.
With the whole patriarchy talk, etc.,
Mhm.
that people really they don't really have a clue of what that's about, really. So anyway, yeah, this neo feminist agendas, so yes,
That's creeping in.
there's definitely been there is definitely an attack on the family unit. And again it still goes back to the divisions that they are implementing, because now now that we have the right wing standing as, for example, the protectors of the family, and the protectors of tradition and all this stuff. And so it's that's
Mm.
that's why some people that's how they keep that's another thing with which they keep people divided and away from actually understanding politics and understanding how the power structure works, and getting to a higher level of just consciousness and comprehension.
Mhm. Are the youth exposed to all the social media that that kind of the U.S. kids are?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I think that's the same, more or less. It's
like Snapchat and all that.
yeah,
TikTok and
yeah.
Vintage, yeah. So.
There ain't nobody in school if they ain't got Snapchat. Let me tell you, or
Mhm.
let me tell people, relay the message that other people told me over here in France. Even like, yeah, it's crazy shit. But
Yeah.
yeah.
The youth is definitely under obviously, I mean, as every controller does, get to the youth. And so you were asking me, Leslie, about how my work is received, and I have to say that the rare times that I have interactions, they are usually not there usually is not young people. It's usually, I'd say, from 45 up. You know, even at the I've spoken at a couple of events, and yeah, the average age there was. I mean, I was lowering it by quite quite a bit. You know.
How do you make sense of that? What does that mean to you?
Oh
That age?
well, that they did a very good job with the younger generations, and they don't
Yeah.
care. They know there's a lot of apathy, and
Yeah.
they don't care. Or they care way less than older people do. That maybe some old like. The older revolutionaries maybe in the 60s that
Yeah. There were a dying breed, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, that at
that's-
least no, but yes, basically that at least they still had older people, some older people, not again I'm kind of careful to say many people are are like this, but the people who are more rebellious, I think, are still the older generation, the older people.
yeah. They have some more memories of events too, right? Of seeing war
Yeah,
or
probably. I mean, war. I mean, now the generation that has seen the war and the destruction and is disappearing. So I mean, they are almost 100 and something. So I mean, my grandma is almost 100. So and she's one of the last people to
yeah.
have seen, to actually have lived through the Second World War. So
Yeah.
even that can have some. I think even that will have some effect, because now it's kind of easier for people uh, to see where where tyranny is going. And so
Yeah. What are what's the economy like?
the economy is getting worse and worse. Probably, yeah. Prices are up, everywhere, and uh, inflation. And now again they use as a pretext, they use the Red Sea, the situation in the Red Sea, which, if you really think about it, doesn't doesn't really make sense, because all the major, I mean, all the European powers and states have I mean, that place is full of warships, of European and American warships. So it's uh, if people wanna, you know, if pirates or the Yemenis or whatever wanna really pull some stuff, it's gonna be really difficult now. So even that is kind of it's a pretext, just like Russia was a pretext, and Palestine and the Palestinian Israel conflict. I mean, they use every conflict and every crisis in the world to raise prices sky high. So one day everything comes from the Ukraine, from Ukraine. So I mean, everything, when Russia attacked Ukraine, everything was coming from Ukraine, so the prices had to to go up. Then everything was coming from Israel all of a sudden. Then now everything's coming through the Red Sea, which is, I mean, true enough, because it's one of the biggest commercial routes of the world. Yeah, that's true. However, it's there are events that are used as pretext. It's
Yeah, it's convenient.
yeah, for their convenience, obviously. Yeah.
Mhm.
And isn't it convenient for the World Economic Forum to kind of spit out whatever narrative and have a lot of Western European just follow suit to that? Excuse my French, but have you noticed that? Has it just been kind of like slowly kind of following these, unelected, whoever the hell made them leaders of, the Klaus Daniel Schwab and company over at the WEF?
Wait, what was exactly you're asking here?
As far as, like the mainstream narratives that they're kind of pushing as far as like towards transhumanism, oh, like yeah, global warming and stuff, and you got to follow the dictates of the Rona protocols and blah blah blah, that are coming out from more like the WHO and the WEF. Does Italy seem to follow
Oh
that
yes,
pretty obediently, I guess?
yeah, absolutely,
Fuck
yeah, yeah, no question about it. Like,
fuck yeah.
yeah,
Is it
they're all on
mainly
board
resistance
again,
or-
as I said, even the people who were in opposition to the government during the coronavirus, now they went in and they came to power and are following the same script. For one thing I'd say, apart from still having mask mandates for some places, but the worst thing I think it's the vaccine rollout.
Yeah.
And this current government has actually approved the vaccine plan for children. So now um, I don't know how many of them children have to take now. It's like
Mhm.
maybe more than 10, it's like 12 or something.
Oh, we have what, 30 here though. I mean, you're still doing better than the US, I think.
Yeah, and this is completely approved by this current this current government, which is people people that went voting, which are not really the majority of people, because almost like there's like an almost 40% plus abstentionism from the vote. So, but anyway, those who voted elected them because they were tired of the COVID policies. So I kind of, I have to laugh at that now, seeing all that they are approving and doing. So
Wow. Have you noticed any trends in terms of health in your country as these changes are happening? Are people generally growing to old ages with, low rates of chronic disease, or
no,
how are,
there's well, unfortunately, it's kind of a global trend. I mean, there's kind of there's an increase in these diseases, and but especially now, it's there's a lot of there's a lot of depression and anxieties, and
yeah,
so that's on the rise, obviously, after the COVID psyop,
yeah,
and people have been. It was a huge collective trauma, and that, I must say, people brought on themselves also. So
mm-hmm.
now they are reaping the effects and the consequences of that. Um, like all the people that made fun of conspiracy theories for the jab, and now they are, if they're lucky, they're dead, and if they are unlucky, they're still alive with with terrible consequences sometimes, and their life completely destroyed and ruined. And we had, of course, many of the sudden deaths and and all that stuff.
Yeah. But the media doesn't draw those connections, does it?
Ah!
It does it when it suits them, like to stir up, political, political debates, and as I was saying before, still part of the, to keep people in the paradigm, the so
Right. Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
so
As
when it's convenient for them, they will have talk shows and special reports about, the jabs where, people have been damaged from the jabs. So but I guess, I mean, could be that, I guess it gets some mainstream light. You know what I mean? It's because if, how people think about, us conspiracy lunatics. So
yeah, you've been around the block. They might say something just to put it into their specific framework within a certain narrative, just to say something about it, just to kind of appease to certain groups so they can come and back off them or whatever. Right?
It is
So the
about
monkey's off
appeasing,
their back.
Say that
Yeah.
again, Francesco.
No, yeah, the controlled opposition is obviously about
Right.
appeasing the people, make them think that they are that that there's someone up there, if not in parliament, but at least in the media, in the mainstream media, thinking about them and their problems and taking care of, making appeals in their favor if they have been wronged by the government. So people like that, people
Mm.
people want to be taken care of from a higher, what they see as a higher power, whether it's the
Yeah.
media or or the politicians.
Or God, yeah.
As far as the alternative medicine realm, have you heard of, because my girlfriend, she worked in hospitals for like 30 years, and since the dawning of the Rona, she realized what the hell was going on, and she got out quick, as well as a good amount of folks, which is cool. And we recently had Leslie and I, Melissa Sell on our show last 2 weeks ago, and she spoke about German new medicine. And I know that your Italian neighbors in the northern region that border Switzerland, they speak a little sprechen die Deutsch, n'est-ce pas?
In Switzerland, yeah.
Has
Yeah,
that
they
kind
speak.
of had any kind of influence? Not like to be like, oh, new medicine is going to be catered to all the German speaking people. It could be it's just a concept that can be worldwide,
Yeah,
implemented with
I've heard about it. I've heard
Okay, yeah.
about it in,
Kind of goes
yeah,
on
even.
to like train theory type of stuff, or as far as like the alternative medicine realm, have you heard of people trying to step up to the plate and like offer something contradictory and better as opposed to the Jacksinations and all that stuff across the nation?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah. In the alternative circles, yeah, you hear about it. You hear about this sort of thing. Yeah, alternative treatments, and yeah, definitely there are people obviously who have seen who are just trying to live a healthier lifestyle in general. So in order to be able to avoid as much as possible to have to go to hospitals and or to the doctor, because it's really a. I mean, they can obviously see it's a Nazified environment. I had to deal with it in 2021, and I it was it was a really bad experience. Uh,
Yeah, bad man.
What
so
kind of environment?
no, I basically I had to go.
Draconian,
I
man.
had to go to the doctor. I mean,
Oh,
not for anything worrying. Just to I had to. I needed him basically for something. But it was terrible because I mean, they 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 were still forcing people to wear masks, and I had an argument, starting to have an argument with this Nazi nurse there, and so
yeah,
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 from yeah,
yeah.
I've
Oh,
seen, yeah, and yeah, it was really terrible. It really shows how, and I mean, a particular environment also. It's like here, it's very. It's like the hardcore, extreme left,
yeah,
statist, authoritarian mindset, and loving it.
yeah. And still, like separating people in the hospital who are, having potentially terminal illness. Are they separating them from visitors or young people, their grandchildren coming to see them, or anything like that?
Oh, that they've done that during the um, during the psyop,
Yeah,
the corona psyop. They've done that. I don't know how it is now, actually. So
yeah. I mean, not that long ago, last year, my daughter's grandma was in the hospital and, given a terminal diagnosis, and she was not allowed up to visit her and still in the hospital, and we had to get little IDs. We'd take our picture and have our IDs and wait downstairs until someone came down and we were given like permission to go up, and then we're supposed to like scan our ID, as we go up and down. It was pretty crazy still. Yeah.
yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't really know how are the protocols in hospital, except
Mhm.
having to wear masks, and
Mhm.
yeah, and if you show like respiratory illnesses symptoms, they can request that you do a test.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's still terrible. I mean, the medical, you know the medical field. It's definitely one of the things that really actively participated in the whole in increasing the tyranny, obviously, and one of the places that one of the fields that has been more responsible for what went on, and it's still going on, and they are among the more brainwashed people that there are.
Indoctrinated? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Where do you see any specks of hope, in terms of helping to expand the understanding of natural law and freedom and
Not many, to be honest. I don't really know, because people want to hear practical solutions, possibly immediate, and there's something that people who are that we just can't sell. Uh, so it's gonna be really it's hard work, and people don't wanna don't wanna really get into that. So they rather hear other things, like new age concepts, or about sudden ascensions, and living the living this realm, and being in another dimension or whatever. And some people, other people, the more left brained, are more into uh, I don't know, filing paperwork and this sort of thing. And yeah, natural law. I mean, I've kind of seen it. People see it as maybe see it for what really is, which is hard work, and hard study and application, and not to. I mean, you're already starting from the internal work, but then just the study, and uh, the effort that they have to put in. It's something that discourages more people. Most people, I think.
what is the general mind attitude about like people going to counseling or therapy or doing internal shadow work? Is that like common language or commonly accepted? Is there
No,
a lot of stigma?
yes, there is. I think there is some stigma, and there are people wanting to go to like one extreme or the other. Like, I guess the more left brain left brain people kind of probably stigmatize it a bit more. That's kind of more woo woo, and internal work. Oh, that's they maybe they see it as something very out there, and that's not really necessary. And maybe the more right brain people, they maybe focus too much on that, and just as far as the benefits that they can have personally in the personal life. They don't really get the fact that that has a purpose, and the purpose is to you to be able to um, to do the great work of changing of actually changing the mindset, and changing the mindset of people, and teaching them what the situation really is. So I kind of keep it maybe at a more personal level, of just just trying to solve their own, to get something better for their life,
Right.
and maybe just that they don't get the magnitude of
Yeah.
the great work. I think people misunderstand also this term, as far as the great the actual term great work. I think it's misunderstood.
Yeah, man. Run it by us real quick. For the folks out there listening. Like in your elevator pitch speech, you got 15 seconds to speak to one person about that. Natty law, great work.
What is it? Yeah, and you have longer than 15 seconds. What is the one great work from your point of view?
Well, the one great work is when you are, when you have, it's really when you have garnered the knowledge that you that is needed, and the understanding uh, of the I guess of either your internal makeup and what's going on in the external world, and the truth about what freedom is, and what slavery is, and the situation that we are living and how to solve it, and then you have to, when you've realized all that, you have to realize, sort of, it's like you have climbed up a mountain and now you have to descend back again, so do your best uh, to spread to spread it, basically, to make people understand it,
Yeah. To come back to the ground level, back
yes,
to earth,
yeah,
and recognize that we're all in this together, right? It's just not a solo journey to the top, right? We're interconnected, and
yeah,
the
and
more
it's
people,
and that it's about, and that it's hard work. It's a difficult endeavor.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not gonna be, and we are. I think people will that take this seriously will soon realize that there's no easy solution, or there's no easy way out, like the Rocky soundtrack goes,
yeah,
and
yeah,
many people, unfortunately, seem, as I said, they want the easy answer, the
Conditioned.
as you were saying before, the 15 seconds, or
yeah,
30
Yeah.
second, answer, and if you're not able to satisfy them in a short amount of time, they move to the next thing that
right. I
that
agree with
depending on
you
and
about, yeah, Francesco. I really, go
one other
ahead.
thing, quickly, is also we have to consider that, for example, I see that in my case with with the few views that I get, whether on YouTube or on the website, that you see a peak, and then there's like nothing for a long time. So, and then, I guess, I mean, I heard this from other people too, that they say that, well, the message sort of becomes, it's like it becomes outdated, once the novelty effect fades in the minds of people. Then, people, I guess, they just want to, very few have the fortitude to stick with it. People want to, again, just move on to whatever, or what
Yeah.
the next thing is.
Hmm.
So this is about persistence. Persistence is a huge element of this great work. uh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
totally. And it's funny you mentioned that, because
Excellent
I was doing a
point.
video. I'm editing it right now and trying to give advice for people trying to create their own great works, whether it be, through media, video, essays, whatever. And one of the things I did touch on is that, that if we are really touching on eternal principles and things that are more or less, timeless, then we always have those, videos and works, whatever, as reference, and they're not gonna, get stale over time, more or less. It's just, it's just how stale the stagnation of algorithms are towards these types of works. I'm sure you noticed that. And maybe I'm sure you've noticed that there is an uptick on, folks looking into, the Hermetica and that kind of stuff, but it's kind of run by, more or less these newbie YouTubers that kind of, they're not really initiated into like true occult knowledge, yet they want to just tick a box of like, oh yeah, ancient knowledge. We're gonna, talk about this for like a good 10 minutes to make ourselves look cool and wise and all this stuff, and then on to the next one. It's just a fucking assembly line of fucking content
Yeah.
creation bullshit.
Yeah. Keep the views, keep it new. Don't stay, in
Yeah,
any one
yeah,
thing, and go deeply. The wells are very shallow. They're almost like little media bullet points, like scanning headlines, right?
yeah, it's just getting watered down, unfortunately, it seems. And just like, people that have gone through, years and years and years and countless hours of research and stuff, like ourselves. And yeah, Francesco, you're trying to do your great work in 2 different languages, which is awesome,
Sometimes more.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. In French, you did a great chat with Dorian Greens, right?
Yeah.
Eh oui, mon ami.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know how I have pulled it off, but
He did.
That's impressive.
I understood that, dude.
Yeah.
That was good. I listened to that whole thing. J'ai compris, mais oui.
yeah, I did that in French, and I actually did some other things in Spanish once
Ooh,
wow.
cuidado.
for a conference that was supposed to take place, but then it was in 2020, so it ended up being online, and
Ah, yeah.
so yeah, so I actually had that other language also.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Man.
That show your persistence there, and your flexibility,
Yeah, we
adaptability.
try, we try.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of highlight a point that you made about the kind of new age where people are drawn to, and how some of the material is like bringing people only part way there, like people are interested in the personal level of the personal impact of the concepts, but not looking at the larger kind of community, larger collective impact, like related to this material. So the 2 major kind of new age-ish or alternative documentaries that came out, one was What the Bleep Do You Know, and the other The Secret, right? And they had made some impact on various groups of people. And I revisited the What the Bleep Do You Know, and then I remember The Secret, and both of them really have a very individual focus, and also that leads you towards kind of a material value system, and
Yeah, how
and
can
I
I
would,
get to how
go
can I
ahead.
get to where I'm at, to having a, I don't know, a
A fancy,
mansion in the
yeah,
Caribbean or something.
right,
So
yeah, fancy car. How can I make, get the best relationship, and it's very much things that are all, people want to improve their lives, but they're seeing these concepts, which are ancient concepts, and putting them in a box and baiting people around their increasing security and safety in the realm of material, I think, and the base needs and desires. They're like, What the Bleep You Know, it doesn't draw the connections to, it talks about the interconnectedness, but it doesn't talk about the implication of that and what that means in terms of what we're creating in the world based on, sort of fundamental laws of creation, and how what we do affects others. The talk of sort of morality or basic, like, right and wrong and the law of freedom, the it's not talked about. I feel like, the natural law community really is one of the few places where the link is made between the individual and everyone.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, people are scared of absolutes also.
Yeah.
So they really don't want to hear that there is an objective right and an objective wrong, So, and I had the occasion of actually hearing it, and there's also one other big thing, especially after I did this. Because I have to tell you, I mean, the little bit of the background of the first conference where I spoke, and it was that I was contacted by these people who wanted to dub the natural law seminar by Marpasio, and they used my translation. So we ended up doing this project, which was basically they would play the seminar in the beginning with the dubbed videos for of Mark talking, and then we will afterwards we are sort of commenting and going a bit and explaining some concepts a bit more, and it's 11 parts. And yeah, that was first of all, that was a great. I think it was the best Italian media project of 2023.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, kudos to them for having me, for also having been able to do that, and
That's a big
I'm
project.
also grateful to have been involved. However, the having to deal with some people who are part of their group. I also been I also I have first-hand experience of all this new age new agey ideas and thoughts. There were some people saying that it's the thing that happened to us are we already decided them before we were born. So like, for example, with abortion, oh, that soul had already decided that he was going to be an aborted an aborted baby or an aborted fetus. And I almost wanted, wanted to get into the screen and and get this guy out of the screen, and and say a few words to him. But, so yeah, that, and also the moral relativity and all that stuff. So yeah, at least I had I've got to have a first-hand experience of this sort of ideas, this new agey ideals. So I guess
Yeah, please.
that
I'm
was
curious.
instructing even in that sense. I've seen where to see where people's minds are at in that um, I guess right brain
It's a
imbalance.
yeah, it's like a
Imbalance of
fatalism,
what?
you
Yeah.
know,
Because I always
powerlessness.
I often, I mean, I have to deal more often with the left brain, sort of the left brain type. So
Mhm. Yeah.
That's understandable. What's your observations as far as it could be whether new agey or people just more inclined to be a little bit more spiritual, the well-being or bien-être, whatever. And is that popular over in Italy? Are people down with even just like doing simple thing, more generalistic things like yoga and stuff? And have you noticed like people that might be tending towards certain spiritual things, whatever, they're still falling short on certain like eternal principles, like knowing their proper rights as a sovereign individual?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Again, as I said, I don't have lots of dealings with with the sort of these people like the yogis and stuff. But yeah, I definitely know that. Yeah, that's the case. What you were saying, it's definitely the case. Yeah. And what you, Leslie, were saying also before, with people, as far as their inner work, they're searching for their their well-being, and then they stay there, and they want more and more of that, and they don't really, as Derek said, they don't really know anything about what their rights are, or what is a right, because people here are kind of obsessed with the as I guess it's kind of common for very highly statist countries like France and Italy. People are more obsessed with the what they're with
Image.
the kind of what their right, they see their rights in the statist way, like healthcare and food, and uh, having a place to stay.
Good
But
transportation system.
yeah, transportation, and
Yeah.
possibly having those for free.
Yeah.
And they don't really know what a right is. They want to know what their what kind of services they can get, and what kind of treatments they can get, and this
Mhm.
sort of thing. But they don't know what the definition of a right is. And tell you what, even some people that are kind of the few people that are kind of more libertarian oriented here, that some of them are coming out more in the, I guess, after the 2000, in the 2010s and now. But even those people don't really understand rights very well. I mean, they do way better than the general statists. However, they still equate rights with something that the government gives you,
provides, like that
Yeah.
external, you know,
Yes, because they say,
savior.
yeah,
Mhm,
because they say, well, rights are life, liberty, and property.
mhm.
However, you know, those it's true, but those three things involve a whole series of actions, and people, you know, fall short in understanding, I think, that a right is an action.
Mhm.
So there's also this understanding is kind of missing. It's an action that doesn't violate another being. So I feel that's kind of, yeah, that's definitely one of the most misunderstood concept that of what actually a right is, as far of its very
Right.
definition, not what I get, what I
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
but just what is it in its true definition.
Right. And that every person has a right to pursue their own life, liberty, and property in a way that, you know, doesn't hurt others, right? You
Yes,
know,
yeah.
but there's a responsibility in that shift you're describing.
Yeah, but I was just, I would point to them also, that there's kind of a not completely an understanding that's not really complete, because they have to understand that it's mainly it's about the actions that you're taking.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that,
Right. And so, you know, there's almost a sense of like, okay, the locus of control. If you don't believe you have the power to attain those things, or that you have, if people don't think they have the right to organize with people to, um, you know, do something on their own, right? Then they're just relying on the state to give it, you know, instead of, so there's this element of fear too, there must be, that's been deeply indoctrinated
yeah,
that,
the fear is that we are, you know, I mean, it's the statist mindset, you know, we are, you know, savage beasts, and if there isn't this you know, the this leviathan, we are gonna be, you know, we just, you know, we are just selfish, and we'll just, you know, we leave people, you know, we'll just leave people to die on the streets, and because that's the, you know, that's how it's going to be, basically, without a state, you know, supervising every aspect of our life from womb to tomb. So
yeah. So lack of
that's the
trust in
statist mindset. It's highly, you know, high fear, high, you know.
yeah. It's like a lack of self-trust, a lack of trust in each other, you know, that this feeling that freedom can't come from freedom, you know.
Yeah, again, as I said before, people, you know, some of these people think that we are losing freedom because there's because of freedom. Because they say, oh, you know, all this.
What else?
Yeah, it's, you know, we gotta have more state control, because now it's, again, as I said, it's now it's, you know, the state is not, it's not anymore a public thing, it's a private institution, so blah blah blah, etc. All the the things that I've explained before, and like they say, they even want more state intervention. They say that's the solution, you know, getting to the, you know, to the state as the provider, and as the, you know, the good government, you know, that's gonna care for its citizens, they're gonna protect the borders, you know, from immigrants and the like, and you know, protect us from the criminals, and give us healthcare, and
Yeah.
and that's basically it. They see violence, as normal if it's the state doing it, you know. And you know, Mussolini used to say that justice, basically, justice comes from the barrel of a gun, and all the, you know. And so I guess, you know, for for the average statist, I guess that's social justice. Social justice. It's a right for social justice to come from the barrel of a gun, or from a bayonet. That's. But they don't realize that's really what they're asking. It's violence.
Yeah,
Done
in such a
towards innocent
relative,
people.
right? And it's so relative, where only certain people are given the guns to use, right? But they don't have the right to use it.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
that discrepancy.
Yeah, that's justified in every way possible. They say, well, of course the state has to, it's to use to have the force necessary to impose its laws on the people who are bad for society because they don't want to obey what the state does or what the majority has voted, or things like this.
Yeah, it's like society's on a date with slavery on the way to a shotgun wedding, talking about
Yeah.
the hell, man.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to reel it back in real quick for people that don't understand some of the geopolitical terrain of your country, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as what I've learned, and might be outdated actually, but you can kind of see Italy as three parts, even like a little fourth, if you will, with Sicily and Sardinia. But you got the north, middle, and south. And yeah, the north, I don't know, you got Torino, I think Milan is included, but you also have like the Swiss Alps, like, German or Swiss Italy border.
Yeah.
And then in your area, it's like the breadbasket with Tuscany and Firenze and other tourist destinations. And then in the south, you got kind of like the more like, I don't know, you might consider them more like rebellious in a sense, or more independent minded. And I'm thinking more like Napoli, especially, and I got, word up to my good friend with your same name, Francesco. I worked with him for a little bit, as well as my my boss who's from there as well. What up, Mario? And yeah, like they're from there, and I've heard stories, and it's an interesting place, and I've been there before too. But yeah. So as far as like just like the mentality and also the political perspectives as well, is that kind of hashed out into threes in a sense over there, or are people kind of more unified towards certain political parties or mentalities or whatever? I know that's a loaded question, man.
Yeah, well, I'd say they're unified. They're unified towards the. They're unified towards the statism, definitely.
Fuck.
But yeah, the fact about the South, it's that it has. I mean, Italy has a particular history because it was born out of violent conquest by the Piedmont, the kingdom of Piedmont, where Turin is. And it used to be called the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia because it had the next Sardinia, in 1720, and it was basically a British nation building operation because they wanted to get a country that they controlled in the Mediterranean, and because Italy has a very yeah, that's the symbol of Corsica and Sardinia.
Which one? The middle one?
Yeah, the Moorhead.
Oh.
By the way, I was married in Corsica actually.
Oh,
never been to Sardinia, but they have like four of these heads on.
Four of these with the
flag.
cross of Saint George. So it's basically the flag of England with four Moorheads in the corners.
Four more heads. Let's get that.
And Corsica, and Corsica has just the white flag with the head in the middle. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's and yeah. But I was saying, yeah, Italy was born out of. I mean, they chose this Piedmont with the house of Savoy, which became the royal family of Italy. and they united Italy. They conquered basically Italy, and the south in particular was treated very badly, pretty much like a colony, but in the worst ways imaginable. It was to subjugate it, they used massacres and decimations, and martial law was there for like 10 years, and pretty much the military governors had the power to of life and death on people. And from that point on, the south used to be the kingdom of two Sicilies under the Bourbon dynasty, which was a French then a Spanish dynasty, and then at a certain point it had a Neapolitan branch, and those were once they were starting to flourish as an economic small power in the Mediterranean. So and when they were conquered by Piedmont and unified under Italy, basically they were destroyed, and their economy, especially economically, and I mean, it was terrible for the South, and that's something that's still going on, because the Southern question is still here, and is still discussed over here. People were wondering how to solve it, and I was like, yeah, maybe that's something that went on in the past, in the 1860s and 70s. It's kind of too far gone, at least until we stay under this under tyranny.
Do you have an understanding of the history even before that, like the more tribal peoples that lived on the land of Italy before,
You mean before even Rome?
Yeah, before Rome.
Yeah, well, before the foundation of Rome, there were various populations living in Italy. I think the most famous are the Etruscans, which were living. Here in Tuscany, and also in other places, was kind of a vast region. And then in the Rome area, there were other populations like the Samnites and the Sabines. Then there were the Greeks in the south, which is called Magna Graecia, which is like the greater Greece, I guess. So from Greece they founded colonies in the south, in Sicily and Calabria, and all over those places. And still today we have language minorities, linguistic minorities there that speak Greek and Albanian, and even Provençal, which is a sort of which is another French another language coming from the south of France. So Italy, it's a very interesting place, and we had Longobards colonization. So then from that we got some of the Germanic terms that we have, because it's mostly Italian is mostly a Neo-Latin language, but we had some Germanic terms that come from the invasions of the Longobards, and then we had the Franks, the Holy Roman Empire. So we had the Arabs in Sicily and Sardinia. So it has been a sort of a melting pot of populations in the past, definitely, and even before Rome, before the Romans, and before the Roman Empire. So
do you have any theories on why Rome became this power center in the world, right, with the Catholic Church? What I don't know, any thoughts on how that was chosen?
Well, the Catholic Catholicism became as you probably know, became the Roman Empire official religion, and I think that was because they saw how good it was for controlling people, basically, and having good slaves and good soldiers. The slaves will the people will generally have it gave hope to people for a better life after this one. So that brought naturally people not to care too much about this life. So it was, and then it was used to justify, the political power, having, being faithful. A good Christian was faithful to the emperor and, to the Caesars. And again, soldier, it was good for soldiers as well. Again, for the, the promise of, first of all, for the obedience, and then because you didn't question, questioning your emperor is like questioning God. And also the, even if they suffer in this life and they fight and die, they'll have, glory in the afterlife, and the bliss in eternal life. So
Yeah.
I think Christian religion could be that they saw the potential, and yeah, that paid off.
Isn't that interesting how it so directly relates to the soldiers, right? And creating this massive army that was so powerful. And, the soldiers were probably had their own sense of like pride, right? Because their armies were so well equipped and they were seen as so powerful. So there was a certain pride and power, I imagine, to be associated
Oh
with
yes,
that.
yeah, and that's a great technique to
Mhm.
have people go and fight and kill and
Mhm.
die for for you, if you are if you
Mhm.
want to conquer other land and having them at your
Mhm.
disposal. I think that
Mhm.
there's a quote in the in Frank Herbert's Dune. I mentioned it. I think I mentioned that when I did my show with Chris
Mhm.
Jensen there,
Mhm.
and it's about when the one of the protagonists asks his father, the Duke there, and he said, how do you? They were talking about the Imperial super soldiers, and they were saying, how do you get the loyalty of such men? And his father responds that it has been done it has always been done in every world that existed. You use this sense of pride and this the sense of shared suffering and shared danger, and the camaraderie that brings, and the and this sense of being an elite. You use that, and you can get them to do
Yeah,
what
they didn't have to recruit. They didn't have
you
to
want.
say, "Hey, we're forcing you to join the military." I'm sure people were begging to sign up because they saw it as like a virtuous, sign. And oh, what nobility to be a Roman soldier for the empire and work for them. And that
Please
was,
God. I mean, that connection
yeah,
to God and to the papacy
there's
seemed
an
Yeah,
allure.
if you just think about the Crusades, also, it's the army of God fighting the infidels, and same thing on the other side, kind of the.
Keep going, because I want you to
So
segue into what you've noticed in modern day Italy, as far as from way back then to what you've seen today, and what you might have even seen, or whatever you've learned about or seen in person or heard about, as far as secret societies walking amongst within society these days, beyond Freemasonry or whatever, whether it be good or bad, light, dark, sided, all
oh,
that.
okay, yeah, well, definitely, yes. Here it's I mean, here I live here in Tuscany, and Tuscany, I guess you could say it's kind of a very Masonic place. There's lots of lodges that there are here. Lots of symbolism. Mm, and I guess many of it is dark. Obviously, we know all about their machinations, and even still the things that go on today. Yeah. Obviously, people in high positions of power linked to this linked to some secret society. Uh, so I mean, that's another thing that keeps people away from the knowledge that they can gain actually from if they studied the traditions. Uh, yeah, and that's common here. I mean, if you mention Freemasonry, people are obviously going to think about the dark aspects of it, because there are, and they are kind of what gets brought into the public eye, and that's how you demonize something. You bring the corrupt parts into public view, so people will stay away from it, and people stay away from it because of the Catholicism also, because there was this there is this sort of, Catholicism obviously had had persecuted people for people that had to form secret societies in order to avoid being burned at the stake or arrested or whatever by the church. So because we have to remember that secret societies were established to avoid persecutions, and then they got, obviously, being very secretive and having secret oaths, oaths of silence and the like. So it's kind of, if you infiltrate and then get hold of something like that, you basically you've won, basically, because now you have an infrastructure that was already secretive, and now you can use it for your dark purposes. So even in this sense, people need to have a broader understanding of how this dynamic work. But anyway, yes, going back to secret societies in Italy, I think it was and it is rife with them, and for good or again dark reasons. So and especially here in this part of Italy where I'm at, it's kind of again, as I said, there are a few, especially Freemasonry, especially, it's this is a very Freemasonic territory, I guess. Mostly famous for dark things, but so.
Is there a connection, partnership of sorts between the Catholic Church and the Freemasons, do you think? Like, how are these underground societies sort of linking together? I'm not sure if you know.
There are, again, there was the aspect of their opposition. They have been opposed. People, Freemasonry obviously was not very keen on the Catholic Church, and and likewise, the Catholic Church has always tried to repress these secret societies and that type of knowledge, because it's kind of they hold dangerous knowledge for the power structure. Actually, if you take the original teachings and the unadulterated teachings, but I think that now it's kind of a different thing, because the Freemasonic lodges that are I guess that are putting these people in places in positions of high power and in government, etc. Today they are clearly working with the Catholic Church to establish this global tyranny going. So it's the same thing with the British monarchy. They might have been rivals at one point in the past, but it's like now they are the two most occulted powers in and the most powerful forces that are still in the world. And I think now they are really, they're working together for the same goals of perfecting slavery in this world. So
I've
well, Leslie, real quick, I just gotta say, Francesco, you speak really good English.
Oh,
your vocabulary is top notch, stellar, above most vocabulary of most Americans.
When you said rife, I was like, damn, yo, really?
Yeah.
I've got my moments.
I even know probably the Dr. Rife in that Rife machine that kind of zap microbes in between. Yeah, Leslie, you had a question? Because I know we're
Well,
winding down, and I
yeah,
really wanted to narrow
we
down as far as how we can synthesize certain divisive topics that we've been going over, and the whole situation that you're currently placed in, with your observation, of course, and how folks can kind of bring up these things in more conversations.
yeah, yeah, like your approach, how do you recommend that we continue to expose people to these ideas, right, in a way that may help make movement, right, even among very indoctrinated peoples. Yeah.
Good question, and it will remain maybe
Good
unanswered
question.
on my part, because
Mhm.
I mean, if I think about it, I don't really have an answer for that. I could only say, try to use what your strong points, I guess, what you're good at, or or this, or the things that we are doing, to try to spread these ideas, to at least start to make people contemplate these ideas. And that's really the best thing I can come up with for now, because I don't know, I don't really have the answer for that. It's there is one thing I can say, as as government becomes more and more overtly violent and oppressive, could be that more people are going to realize the situation that they are in. I know, maybe this will at least put some some dents in the in the whole
Yeah.
in the whole plan. But again, we have to, again, it's really hard work, and we're gonna we can continue to put stitches on it, but only for so long, I think. At a certain point, people will need to realize, I don't know exactly how, but they will need to realize that the illegitimacy of the core illegitimacy of the situation that we are in, and the institutions that they thought for all their life that they were there to protect them, or even if they're bad now, but they can be reformed, etc. So they'll have to wake up to the truth that there can't really we can't really go on with with the same in the same paradigms and beliefs that we have held up to this day, because they're not reformable. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they really get on. They really have to get online with what rights are and what right and wrong are, and hopefully then this will bring a more better understanding of natural law itself, and that's not just some religious idea or dogmatic idea. It's actually quite a scientific idea, to be
Yeah,
honest.
Brandon Spencer put out a great presentation titled like "Why Natural Law is Not a Religion." It's awesome. Y'all should check it out.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
for
let's
sure.
yeah, I just want to highlight, like slow and steady wins the race, right? It's kind of like the mindset of the tortoise. And, we have all these jackrabbits around us hopping around really fast. And we're just like, okay, we're just going to stay slow and steady and, plant little seeds along the way, to help, plant seeds for a change of consciousness. And I think yeah.
I think we definitely have to keep on try to do that, because I mean, that's one thing that might seem pretty dark to say, but I think it's the truth. We can clearly see that all the as of now, all the atrocities and tragedies and this mass death and mass murders that have gone on, all these horrors in history, that they do seem not to have been able to get the people to really wake up to to the situation we're living, and that's unfortunately is just gonna gonna bring us closer and closer to them repeating repeating itself over and over until slavery gets so perfected that it's gonna be at that point even near impossible, I guess, to get out of it. But I don't wanna really speak for the long run, for the in the very long term, because again, we can't really, on that perspective, we can't really know how it's gonna turn out. So I think there's hope in, as you said, keep planting the seeds, and because for future generations, I think it's really very altruistic act to keep doing the work that we are doing, because we are at least trying to leave testimony for the future,
Yes.
for the future generations, that again, then it's going to be in their hands to go on, fighting this slavery.
Yeah, I think that's important, that leaving the testimony. I liked how you said that, leaving the testimony for future generations. And because then that information will be there for them to access, hopefully, right? If the more of us that are putting information out, then people can receive it. And maybe at that point, see the contradictions. We're bringing forth ancient information, knowledge that has been, true throughout all of our existence.
Yeah, and that's, if you think about it, that's something that I read in a book by Harold Bailey. It's called New Light on the Renaissance, and he pointed out how the people who were hiding things in symbols and this I don't remember how they're called in English, but basically, in this illustrations and symbols,
sigils.
Something like that. But they never, they didn't give up. They were all about being steady in what they were doing, and they didn't give up. And that's for that reason that today we can even speak about some of the things that we're speaking about. So I think that's very important, and that's very even motivating. We have to, and in those times, some situations in those times were even worse than what we have today. In many respects. So they were even more at risk, way more at risk of their own lives. So they have to hide. That's why they had to hide many things.
Encrypt their shit.
Yeah, exactly. So we have, if anything else, we have a great depth towards those people that preceded us and that kept going, notwithstanding all the difficulties that they encountered. So I guess that's I think the more positive thing that I can say.
And I just wanted to add, as in my work, I'm a clinical social worker, and I do a lot of work with people, helping people overcome trauma. And the more that people heal from their own traumatization and the generational trauma, I think the more chance there is of waking up to see the contradictions and see the value of this information. A lot of the asleepness is from that generational trauma, what the apathy and the lack of care. And so I think really promoting, the mental health work, for people to do the internal work and understanding the value of that is another strategy.
I agree. They have to understand that it's very important, and it's it's a means for them to then be able to propagate this knowledge.
To even understand.
And to even understand that. That's right. I agree.
Well, it's been lovely to have you on.
Whoa, it has been lovely. And I got
we got another question. Yeah, just heads up, I gotta go soon. You guys can keep going, actually, but I gotta go.
5 minutes?
Well, if you want, we can go on.
All right, so just real quick, because it's just really I'm not gonna bring up the phonetics of certain things, and it just harkens back on so many things of intertwining, the etymology of words and where they originate from, and the cross sections of Germanic and Latin and whatever that's been, from all the way to Italian to German to French and all this stuff, Spanish, and then to America, where it's all, convoluted or whatever to a degree. So it's just really cool to hear certain things. And like, people watching Bread and Circus, going back to the Roman Empire, they watch, football for that Lombardo trophy, thinking about the Lombards and all that stuff. I was laughing earlier because I used to live with a French guy who had a rare name, whose name was Lambert, and so like all these things, and ancient Greeks were also considered or called Minoans and Etruscans, something like that. So Etruscan,
No,
Tuscany,
the Etruscans
like you mentioned.
were from around the place that I'm at, like central, north central Italy.
Okay, I
And
heard.
the Greeks came into Italy, founded colonies there, and the Minoans were from Crete. That's the
Okay,
Crete civilization. That's an ancient Crete civilization.
gotcha.
That's quite
Yeah, I
interesting.
might have heard otherwise, but I feel you. But so, I'm sure you've asked folks on the streets of the lovely roads of Florence, hey, dove legge naturale, or like Brandon Spencer or Chris Jensen and I be asking Leslie. I'm sure you've had folks on the streets. You got that natural law? You ever done that? Just like ask, see a response sometimes or whatever, or just, I don't know, like we could take some of these stabs at, trying to, catch people off guards or plant seeds, as you guys are mentioning, and all that.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a really. I mean,
like an yeah, it's kind of weird.
I've talked about it with a few people, mentioning natural law, and obviously you get the usual kind of the usual answers that there's kind of either the law of the jungle, or it's either you have to be a believer in you have to be a Christian or religious person in order to believe it. So that's kind of the two main answers in my very limited asking in that sense.
Yeah, and that was more of a joke question and all that. But I guess my last question, and this is gonna really kind of conclude it all, as far as I mean, I wanted to ask this out of the gates, but it was really just lovely how this whole conversation unraveled. Thank you so much for your time, both of y'all. But just as far as like what you've noticed and even experienced, like what are like people's the most polarized or divisive on, whether it be opinionated or whatever, and that kind of stuff. And like, if you answer that, would you give any advice or solutions as to how we can kind of bridge those gaps and kind of dissolve them divides? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm guessing the more opinionated it's and divisive thing, I guess, is politics. Maybe nothing new there.
But yeah,
it's a play a strategy from the playbook that just seems to continue on working.
Yeah. That's, I'd say that definitely. Yeah, that's the political paradigm and with all the dialectics that stem off from it. And the other thing is probably football.
Soccer,
and soccer, or as you'd say, yeah.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
people, and probably the
famous there, yo. Lazio, Milano, like yo.
And I say also this. That's why they had to resume the championship in 2020 pretty quick, because without it, it was suspended at the beginning. But without it, that could really be the time where people could have been start rebelling.
Yeah. There you go. There's the ticket. Get in there.
Yeah, and that was the biggest act of civil disobedience that has been done in Italy in those times, when Inter, which is the international Milan, which is the one of the teams from Milan, that when they won the championship, and there was the lockdown and all the forbidden, like how do you call it when it escapes me now, but when people get together, it's like people couldn't be together.
Crap.
So that was So that was the central place in Milan, of where the Duomo was filled with people celebrating. And that's what the only and the police obviously couldn't do anything about it because it was just full of people. And that was
That's
the football or soccer. It's the only the biggest only civil disobedience act that has been done in Italy in that time.
That is so interesting. So
imagine that. Talk about
like...
deviated and diverted energy there.
Yeah, don't get in between people and their soccer or their football, right?
Exactly.
In the area that I live, the one act of real in your face Governor Newsom disobedience was the rodeo, because I'm up in Northern California.
Wow. Oh yeah. No
and people here have guns and they have their rodeo, and they were not going to not have the Cottonwood Rodeo. And it was right before we were supposed to have some expansion in freedoms to allow businesses to open. And they just did the rodeo and had, 1,000 people or whatever, close quarters without masks. And Governor Newsom almost like canceled the expansion, and because he was mad about that disobedience. And so people had to go and like convince him somehow to
just imagine if that was applied, for if people realize that was all a psyop, and people actually applied that disobedience for what really mattered,
Yeah, exactly.
Just imagine that power,
Yeah, but yeah. It's interesting though that does exist. It shows, when the human spirit is attached to something they care about, right? A passion, that they will rebel on some level,
Yeah, exactly. It is about what we care about, as my friend Douglas Martin says.
Yeah.
And we see what we care about is definitely not freedom. It's
football and rodeo.
What about a good old fashioned espresso?
That too. Gosh, food and coffee. Yeah, people will fight for that. Toilet paper.
But hey, like the French Revolution apparently started off on, the uprise in the price of bread, for example. But yeah,
that's also why I think they are. Sometimes they are. They don't go all the way with like food crisis and things like that, because then they are kind of more cautious about that. Like having food disappear completely from the shelves, because then that's another. They're probably kind of, they probably have they're maybe afraid of having situations where they lose control about that and people start rebelling and destroying things.
You're right.
Paper,
but they keep people in fear by threatening these the food shortages.
Yeah, well, prices going up and food and prospects of war and food shortages and this sort of thing. Yeah, they keep the fear going, but I think sometimes they had to be cautious on. Going more, balls to the wall with just starve people outright with no food present. So
right, I agree. Price of gas as well. Yeah, they kind of play around with your mind, and then they sort of hold you at a comfort level that just sort of keeps you, acquiesce to that situation, and afraid that if you too rebellious, you might lose what you have, or.
Yeah, because the fear is the biggest mind control tool that they have. Now they're doing the same thing that they were doing in the Cold War, and even in the Cold War they were constantly speaking. Oftentimes they were saying, well, now it's probably we're gonna start the hot war in a while. So, and they're kind of doing the same thing. That's kind of what they're doing now again. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate that you joined us, Francesco. And
thanks for having me on. It has been really great and interesting. So thank you, and kudos for all you're doing.
Thank you, and you too. Really, a warrior out there, and. I think coming together in these conversations is also helps fuel us to keep the fire burning and to keep on persisting. And
it's definitely good. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pop off, and you guys can hang out a little more if you want. But I gotta go Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
So-